When we say the Constitution is an experiment, that is debatable. And I'll throw it to you. Barak, can we hear from Haman, then we come to you?
Okay.
Right, Haman.
You know, what we are talking about, seeing bad things happening, including people throwing litter all over, including people polluting rivers and all sorts of bad manners, really is an indication of a broken social order. Now, social order is created and sustained by two key things. Number one, by laws or regulations or norms in a society. So these are put in place to ensure that there are no excesses.
Yes.
And when that time you go out of the way, you are brought back to the way by way of punishment, rebuke, or otherwise. The second thing that contributes to social order and which is critical is leadership. Because it is that leadership that will ensure there are effective laws in place and that those laws are implemented. Effective leadership. But more than that, leadership also means you lead by example. So you cannot ask citizens to behave in a certain manner when you, the leaders, behave in the opposite manner. In the good book of the Christians, they say preaching water and drinking wine. So that is, social order in this country has collapsed because the leadership is lacking in many ways. Why is leadership lacking? At all levels, not just at political leadership. Leadership is lacking because we have a fundamental flaw in how we identify our leaders. We identify our political leaders through what Barak knows to be called development. We allow people to steal our money, then they come to the villages and do development. Then those are the people we elect. That until this society establishes a way through which we will identify our leaders, because all societies have had to wrestle with that idea. Who are our leaders? How do we come up to get them? Are they the best rainmakers? Are they the best warriors? What are our leaders in the 21st century supposed to be? I can speak here, I can show I'm capable, but if I happen to go home for votes, they will want to know how many people are employed. I'm not a labor officer. They say this man is useless. Whom has he ever employed? They'll want to know how many Arambes. Yet the same Kenyans know that those who bring the money for those Arambes are not even bringing their own money. This is the stolen money. So one of the things we need to do in this country is have a total ban on what we call Arambe. And then the government will then do those things for which Arambe is made to look very useful, including provision of health care, education, and so on and so forth. So when you have people who are not capable at the leadership level, then you have a problem. At other levels in terms of government officers, we have never known the meaning of merit. I've said this thing so many times in this place.
Yes.
I'm even sick, but allow me to say the last time. That countries that are developing have long realized that unless you have the best man for every available job, the best woman for every one single job you have, you never move forward. We live in a country where we think just about anybody can do anything. So now that lack of leadership then means the good things we should do cannot be done. You go to courts, the courts are the administration of justice in the court is, to say the least, very sad, honestly. And so we cannot move forward. That means, therefore, we now revert to what people are saying, social responsibility. Muduma is saying that let the citizens move their country forward. Let me tell you this, it has never happened anywhere. When leaders fail to move the country forward, you cannot turn around and tell the citizens, usalama inaanza na wewe. The citizens pay taxes. They want you to employ police to protect them. They will play their role once you are playing your role as government. You cannot say it is them to play their role.
Thank you.
Now the bar, I must finish by saying this. There is only one way through which citizens play a role to change things in their country, and that's through a revolution. When you cannot do things and you have been given that opportunity, when the institutions created by the citizens through their constitution or whatever laws they have created to govern themselves, including the courts, the police, the political leadership, the members, if you cannot use those institutions to bring desirable change in society and you push it to the citizens, they only know one language. They will do it, but through a revolution.
But revolution
Because you
is,
will
a,
have
is a very
abdicated.
ticklish issue. Let's say from Barack, because you raised the issue of experimenting with the Constitution. Should we not be holding this particular document as a sacrilegious document that we just don't tinker with it and, amend it every which way we want? Experimenting on it, as Ash is putting it. Barack Muluka.
The Constitution says that every citizen has the responsibility, the duty of protecting this Constitution. And from that vantage point alone, every citizen has a role to ensure that there are certain standards that those who are privileged to govern are held to. The people who are in power are not some kind of medieval monarchs.
True.
Who are allowed to do things howsoever they may wish, who may throw tantrums at us and beat their chests and mismanage the country. When something like corruption becomes one of the rewards of being in power, the laws that we have in this country do not say that when you ascend to office, one of your benefits is going to be access to corrupt use of public amenities, of public funds. The citizens have got a responsibility. And I do not agree at all with this thing which we keep on being told that let us expand this space here around the executive so that we can have everybody at the table. First,
To pacify the nation.
First, everybody eats with their own mouth, and that food ends in their own stomach, in their own alimentary system. There's nobody who can eat for you at any table in the world, even if it's a Prester John's emeralded table, they cannot eat for you. They eat for themselves. Secondly, when you say we want everybody at the table, are we going to have a Galana at that table? Are we going to have a Digo at that table? Are we going to have a Rendile at that table?
Yes.
At the table of the so-called executive, where we have got 42 people, a college of 42 people, and these 42 people are the president, deputy president, prime minister, and deputy prime ministers. We must have 42 men and women at that table. It's not going to work because that is not what ails us. Muduma talked about Tanzanians. Ali Mazrui, the late professor of political science, coined the term Tanzaphilia. Tanzaphilia. The love that those people have got for their country. Where is our love for Kenya?
Correct.
So that we say Kenya first. It doesn't matter that the thief in question is Barack Muluka and that he may be my brother, my son, or whatever he may be to me. If he is the thief, the first thing we must do is to isolate him. The second thing we must do is to make him feel very ashamed of what he has done. And the third thing that we must do is to jail him. And finally, we must repossess that wealth. Now, when we start doing such things, it will not matter
Thank you.
who is in power.
Muduma.
You see, and again, highly disagree with my good professor. That's why I call him my good professor.
I finally have someone who does that.
You see,
You disagree on what?
when he
You
said-
looking
when he
back
said
and
the people-
beckoning
No, no, no,
the citizen
he
to
mentioned-
actually...
yeah.
Yes,
The
okay,
citizen.
okay.
Deban, let me tell you, I believe that's the only thing that has ever worked. People coming together. And it's all through a revolution. You don't need to get there, all right? And this is where I agree.
But what avenue can we come to together?
You see, whether you want to look at it from the Asian tigers, how they build themselves, it started with we, the people. The American economy was we, the people. That is why the Constitution, our first chapter, what says clearly, all sovereign power belongs to the people. So what we need to question is why don't we, the people, make the right decisions when it comes to electing the leaders? Because that's the only way we can. You see, I want to hold my leader at the point of his promise. You said you would do. And the Constitution has also provided me to use that promissory note to tell them, you said you would do, you haven't done. And then I invoke the machinery of them, of getting them out. By the way, Debal, it's just similarly the way Prof here will employ a farm manager. We make it, we try to convolute and try to make it very complex, but it's as easy as they come. If Prof has employed a farm manager who is not living up to the standard,
I fire him.
exactly. So why we need, Debal, this is our conversation that we should have. This is a conversation I believe this country should have. Why we do not get the good. We are so ready to give these leaders our value when they act and play the part, not living out the true measure of what quality leadership is all about. So that's why I'm saying we must be edified enough as a democracy to know that I will only give you my value if I know for sure you are up to the task. And our problem has been, Debal, how do we get from the good, the better, and we settle for the best? And I'll give you an example before Mohammed comes in. Ahmed. Oh. It is the same way you would be choosing a pilot. Two pilots come to you, and one of them tells you, you know, I saw something going around, but it's a little bit different from that. And they tell you, well, we are both pilots. We have exact hours of flying time. We are both experienced. When you have two people with the same experience, you look for the other variables because you're given to choose one leader. You look for the other variables that make one stand out. And it could be something like, you know what, this one is not only qualified, but he listens. He's better in timing. You go to other variables that will ensure that you are left with one good leader. But we do not do that. We wait for the first person who comes to sell us the part. We are so quick to buy into the part without actually pushing the envelope a little bit harder to understand, are we getting the right one? And that's why we've ended up with governance.
Why aren't we getting the right man? It's because we've been subjected to not really getting the right man.
No. It is, you know, it is as the system of selection is flawed, and we've made it flawed because we do not go for people who have content. We go for the people who experience the exclamation of the majority. Like Haman today. He has just told you a very good example. If he goes to Mashinani, the first thing they'll ask, Harambe umetoa ngapi?
Fantastic. But Harambe umetoa ngapi? Because that is where we've been subjected to by the leaders. Yes, you remember the Stalin syndrome, just a moment, with the naked chicken. And I think we've discussed here before, even with Haman, this particular naked chicken here. I know it's a bit gross and graphic if you may look at that particular chicken. But this is what Stalin... Yeah, no, just a moment. This is what Stalin did. You see, you know, a human being will always come back to you. Look what I'll do. I'll pluck all the feathers from this chicken. No matter how painful it is. If you throw the breadcrumbs, the chicken will still come back to you. And that's what the politicians, what the leadership has been doing in this country, throwing breadcrumbs to the citizenry. So when we ask why are we electing them, they give us the breadcrumbs. They want us to be in perpetual poverty all through, Ashi.
Yeah. Debal, if my good friend Bernard Muluka, Barak Muluka, and my good friend Manyora, I'm sorry about that, I know your name, want a revolution, they can have it. I will go back to my cousins in Wajir and look after my camels, because we have different senses about being a Kenyan in the first place. There's some people who have been out of this idea of being a Kenyan for a very long time. So most of them have just gotten counties, assemblies in their hometowns. They're starting to govern themselves. They're starting to be part of this country. What the people, in my opinion, in Nyeri or in Vihiga or in Kericho want, in my opinion, humble opinion, is more devolution. And to have more devolution, we have to change the constitution so we give 25% of the budget back to the devolved units so that they can do their own development. And have a central government that is got leaders who can do oversight over corruption in the counties. And then we can have a judicial system that can watch the state over issues of corruption. And we can have a leadership that fights for a country and a nation that produces jobs, and a people who are culturally able to stand up and be patriotic about their country. I believe in transitions and fundamental change in a society from one bad point to the next level so that we could try and fix these things through a process.
But what is the process? What is the mode of transition that we're talking about?
I'm just finishing. It is very easy to put up the banner of revolution. It's very easy to put up the banner of radicalism. But it is hard business to actually do it in a society that for the last 50 years has been bamboozled by terrible politicians. And I think that to be in favor of the people of this country, you have got to be able to understand that the little that they have, and the little that has been allowed for them to have, should not just be kicked into the curb. Our farmers need an agricultural sector that works. Our workers want to have places where they can go to jobs. Our education system needs ministers and teachers who are doing a good job. These are the visions that we need to go and run after. For us to say that this country needs a revolution,
I don't think that's what he said.
I think that the two gentlemen on my left and the right can go and have it. But I can go. I will go to my camels. They can go and have it.
That's not what he said, and there will be no safe havens if that happens. Ahmed talks like a child who says, if the house is on fire, I will hide under the bed.
Now I'm going to my camels. I'm not going to
Before Ahmed goes to Ajah to look after his camels, I want to look Gabriel Muduma in the eye and tell him, this thing of the people, Gabriel, it is overblown. In fact, I don't even believe in the whole nonsense of public participation. Yeah, I agree with Moy. Moy said, look here, we have a representative democracy.
Yes.
When Jiko has elected you to speak on their
Right.
behalf, then you pretend to go back to Manyora to ask them. But if you take that thing to Kakamega where Muluka comes from, if you go there, have gone there, the people who are there are just like me and you. That when Jiko never appears before this so-called commissions and committee, BBI. So let's not drag things by this idea of public participation. Now, to draw from your own example, Gabriel, we the people, right? We the people in America, the people was male and white. It didn't include women, whether white or black. It didn't include black people who at that time were slaves. So we the people,
After
endowed by certain rights.
After 1928, it did.
So what I'm saying is,
Prof, you know
no,
that.
let me say
you
what
know
I'm
those are
saying.
two
Let him finish.
Let me finish. What I'm saying is, in a modern state or even all these other states and formations, really let us not exaggerate the role that people can play directly in their affairs. It is leaders who shape society. So in a country like Kenya, with a broken system in every sector, a country where people live in slums that are not even slums, a country where people die from diarrhea, a country where life expectancy is compromised by things that other countries solved 100 years ago. In a country where there's so much pain, so much unemployment, so much suffering, in a country such as ours, we need leadership.
Correct.
It is leadership that transformed Cuba from a slave island to a modern state. In 1918, Gabriel, Russia was fighting in the First World War, barefooted. The soldiers didn't have shoes. And you know the Russian winter is the worst winter anywhere in the world. I mean, if you leave those other Iceland places. Yet, in a span of 5 years, Russia was a superpower. Libya is a desert. What did Gaddafi turn Libya into?
But all these
No, let me say,
examples,
what I'm saying,
all these people
let
were
him finish.
overthrown by the
Listen,
people themselves.
listen, I'm coming to where I'm getting somewhere. What I'm trying to say is, when the system is so broken, such as ours, you cannot have what my friend is saying, incremental development. Today, let Uhuru push kidogo, Raila will push another kidogo. We can't have that kind of leadership. We want transformative leadership. A leadership that is founded on some vision to transform this country and move it where it ought to be. That is the role of leadership and not the citizens.
So are you settling saying that we need a sort of a benevolent dictator?
I don't care who he is. No, I'm,
to transform this country.
Let me explain
you
that.
know, Prof will still end up,
If
and
we
actually
start
has
talking-
ended up.
Let me
has
explain
ended
that.
up
No, listen,
with
let
where
me
I
explain
started
that.
out.
Let me explain that. You see, certain things are done in a certain way because of the times at which they are done. Europe became what it is through war. In the words of Bismarck, the decisions of the day were decided by blood and iron. We are no longer in those days. But you cannot say the role Bismarck played in the unification of Germany and the development of Europe, that role is not there now in our country, except that we would not do it through a revolution.
Yeah.
It need not be a benevolent dictator because times have changed.
Have changed.
But
Yes.
we are looking at leadership that can transform this country without abdicating their responsibility and saying, let the citizens do it.
Right.
The citizens will play a role, a significant role. They will also
Thank
only
you.
play their part if leaders are playing their part.
Prof, I don't think you got what I said.
What did you say?
Right.
What did you say?
Because
Yes.
I started by saying out, it starts with we the people. Whether you want to talk about the American Constitution or the Kenyan Constitution, it starts with we the people.
But
and
what
you
does that
cannot
mean?
tell me there could be that which is written, Debal, and I agree with you. The written Constitution and the words. Then there's the practical and the exercised. When you tell me it was written, but it include women and children, it started by saying we hold these truths to be self-evident,
Yes.
that all men are created equal. That has never changed, and it cannot change. All right, whether you practice it or not, it remains relevant
Some men were
to
more
today.
equal than others.
You can play about with the words, but the true meaning of that will never change. What we need to be asking, and this is where I was telling Prof, I don't think he gets what I'm saying, is when you say we the people, and then you're saying the leaders drive it, who put those leaders in those offices? It is again we the people. That's why I'm saying we need to question
Thank you.
how we
Barak?
do our value.
Yes,
Yes.
Thank you. The problem with the good professor is that he keeps on contradicting himself. You see, the
Tell him.
Constitution itself says that all sovereign power belongs to the people of Kenya and shall be exercised only in accordance with this Constitution. And then it elaborates, for avoidance of doubt,
Yes.
that the people may exercise their sovereign power either directly
Or
or through
their elected
their
leaders.
democratically elected representatives. The people decide.
Yes.
Professor Manyora says that when he goes to Vihiga, they ask him, how much money have you brought? It is the people that who are asking him how much money he has taken to them. He's talking about Russia and France and the American Revolution, the Mexican Revolution, and the Cuban Revolution. And they were all led by the people. The Filipino Revolution, the Arab Spring, Hong Kong, where a revolution is unfolding, pole pole. All these things are about the people. And as we said earlier, they start with very small things. Vigilance over things like, are you spitting in the street? Are you getting into the alleyway and using it as the urinal? Are the other citizens standing up to you and telling you, no, you cannot do that? Are you beating the traffic light? It is a question of inbuilt culture. We hold each other to account, and ultimately we hold the leadership to account. And when the leadership is not going to listen to us, we will camp outside where that leadership resides until it goes home.
Jabal,
Thank you.
We have fought since independence gradually. I think this is a very important thing. I do agree with Manyora on one thing, not the revolution, not the radicalism, but I do agree with him on one thing, that we need transformation. The leaders who are transformative. I really agree with that, because we don't have leaders who are transformative. There are some who I believe, if they get into power, can be transformative. But I am a liberal and a person who believes in the free press, who believes in the judiciary, who believes in the rule of law, who believes in human rights, who believes in constitutional democracy. I believe in freedom of expression, and I believe in habeas corpus. I believe in people assembling peacefully to petition their government to do the right thing. Extra that, I go to my camels. I believe that this country has huge potential. I believe that this country has tremendous leaders. And I do appreciate Mr. Manyora's philosophy. It is a legitimate philosophy. A lot of people may hold it. There are other philosophies here, but at the end of the day, the great bard Shakespeare said in Hamlet, there are more things to heaven and earth, O Horatio, than are perceived in your philosophy. And therefore, I believe that if we have a constitutional democracy in this country, we're beginning to have something like that, but it must be accompanied by the three important things that I believe in. And the number one thing is jobs to the people. Without jobs to people in this country where they can raise families and have a decent life, that constitutional democracy is not going to mean anything. And that job is going to come through regional integration. It's going to come through free movement of people, through free movement of ideas, and having a single currency. These are the practical jobs of government and the economy that we need to have leaders in. If we say we're going to just wash everything away and start from ground zero, we're not going to make it.
All right, Dikush on Twitter is saying, before we come to you, Haman, he's saying, Haman Manyora, we watch EPL because local football sponsors went down the drain. We gamble because there are no jobs, job opportunities. We watch porn because our stadiums and parks are not built.
And they have been grabbed.
Or are very poor, or they have been grabbed as well. You've seen that. This is what the coach is saying. Also, this is Leah Matilda saying Premier League thing maybe have to. They do this because they're jobless. I think just alluding to the same fact. Revamp the economy, and this will soon be over. We have Nyamogi Gogni saying, on the contrary, we have always spoken about first liberation, second liberation, and now we're talking about the last and the final liberation. I just don't know the determining factors of the stages. The question should be, what do we do about them towards improvement of this country? We have Kennedy also saying a country is not the land under the borders. Under the border, it's the people within the borders. Can you love the people within the borders? He asked. This is Kennedy Omogi there. Also, we have Peter Mutisia saying farms are axing employees, unemployment on the rise, overtaxation, all just to fund corruption. I sure don't need to remember where we were.
You see, that young man talking about those things I talked about, he's really talking about the candle, about the hope. The candle is not lit because of the leadership we have. We get the most useless fellows and put them in charge of sports. And therefore, they cannot exploit what Kenya can give to its young people in terms of sports and so on and so forth. But let me go back to my fellow panelists.
This will also mark as your closing remarks, please.
I think they do not understand me. Muluka, contradiction, no, dialectic perhaps. When you talk about people being responsible, Muluka, I'll take you back to Singapore. It is the premier, the revolutionary premier, who said gum derails Singapore. Gum, when you chew gum, it was both figurative and real. That because there's so much of the light train there that they wanted to rely on for tourism and the rest to develop Singapore. And therefore, if you throw gum, really, it could physically do it, but really he meant also figuratively, he meant that we cannot attract tourists. We would be a lifeline of an economy such as us if we are dirty, if there's dirt all over. So it's about leadership and about directly, there is nothing contradictory. The people exercise their sovereignty directly by electing people who should do what they are meant to do.
Thank you.
When those people don't do what they are meant to do, the people then come in directly and they are in Puerto Rico in the streets and they are removing their governor.
Thank you.
They are in please Kidogo too. They are in Hong Kong trying to force mainland China to change. They are in there hundreds of thousands. That is directly. That is impeachment. In other words, if leadership of a country does not ensure that the institutions function, the courts, the parliament, and everybody else, the people do things directly.
Thank you, Haman.
And that direct is impeachment, is a revolution.
Thank you.
That's what I mean.
Hashi, briefly, your closing remarks.
My closing remarks, Dubal, is we need to go to a referendum. We need to change the constitution in the places that it does not work. We need to empower the counties to get more money for devolution and make sure that devolution is working in this country, and fundamentally support the President and the former Prime Minister in fighting these issues of corruption in this country so that we can pass the bridge and give it to another generation to move this country forward.
Thank you. Barack Moroka.
That the change that we need is change in ourselves. It is not necessarily a change in the laws. We have had very many of those kinds of changes, and they have not brought about anything. You can go out there and have some more. But if we have not changed, as we have demonstrated here, the laws already exist, and yet we act in breach of them every day, and hence our dislocation. But finally, I'm very happy that Manyora has rediscovered his way back to the rails, and now he's able to see the role
Thank
of
you.
the people.
Thank you, thank you.
Very quickly, and
Manyora.
probably this one would actually touch on what Manyora has said. I believe in this country we have transformative leaders. The question we should be asking is, why don't we get them elected? All right? And I believe this is because the deposit of ignorance that we have and the measure of mediocrity in our locale does not allow us to do that. And Debal, that's why I said democracy will only work when the electorate is informed.
Fantastic. And what a very good note to actually end. Thank you very much. Those of you who are closing remarks, I told you.
My closing remarks.
Yeah, I told you that will serve as a closing. You don't listen. No.
The last word. Let's give him the last word.
No. I gave him his I know where he's headed. Thank you. Just want to get a rejoinder. Thank you so much for your valued company. You've been watching Leadership Forum here on AM Live, right? Kenya is my land. It will always be, and it will remain to be my land. Hope is a candle. And of course, we don't want to dim this particular candle. Let's try and, of course, fan the flames and show a brighter future even for our children. Thank you very much for your valued company.